Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my video all about them canceling a bunch of the CW Arrowverse shows, what's going on with DC's larger plan for all of its content. Like, people are wondering, shows are getting canceled. Is this the end of the DC TV universe? Not quite what you think, but we have seen a version of this happen before. All the Marvel fans out there just a couple years ago saw the exact same thing happen to them. DC and Warner Brothers just had this big merger with Discovery. They hyped all these huge changes for the future of DC movies and DC TV shows just in general. Like, they even say that they're hiring themselves a version of Kevin Feige, as if Kevin Feige himself has turned into a verb. People saying they're going to Kevin Feige the DC TV universe. Somebody's going to control everything and tell them what's going to get made and what's not going to get made. As nuts as it sounds, it's not quite as crazy as you expect, so I'll explain everything. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get everything. I will be doing weekly videos for all the big budget DC HBO shows that will be coming in the next year. And they are in the middle of making really big budget DC shows like Batman HBO shows, Green Lantern HBO shows, even a Peacemaker Season 2, so don't worry.
You're late, you dickheads. Go another fish, asshole.
I'm so sick of that rumor.
It's not a rumor.
So this is probably a good place to start. You've probably seen in your feeds this past week that DC and CW canceled Batwoman and Legends of Tomorrow. It's really just the tip of the iceberg. There's been talk about them canceling the Flash TV show after a shorter than normal season 9 next year, like there was a big deal about Grant Gustin negotiating to be in less episodes of The Flash. The same way that Stephen Amell did a final season of Arrow, but the season itself was super short and was mostly a sort of wrap-up in Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of season. Like, if they had not been doing Crisis on Infinite Earths that year, they probably would have not done that final season of Arrow.
Like Green Arrow?
No, not like Green Arrow. That dude goes to brony conventions dressed in the back half of Twilight Sparkle with a 4-inch wide butthole drilled in the costume.
No, I actually heard that's true about Green Arrow, but that's the first thing he said that's real.
An Aquaman fish.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Some of you are probably like, wait a minute, they were still making new episodes of the Flash TV show? There was still a Batwoman show? They were still making Legends of Tomorrow? What's going on? Like, you completely moved on to other forms of entertainment since then. There are really two big reasons why the DC TV universe on the CW is sort of spinning down, coming to its natural end as you used to know it. Most of it is getting canceled, ending in some way, and some of it is just getting shuffled to a different platform. You sort of have to think of the peak of the classic DC TV universe on the CW as being Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like, that was meant to be the big culminating event, the thing that you never thought that they would be able to do, that they tried to pull off doing. They ended Arrow, some of the shows continued after that, but at a sort of reduced capacity, and they said that they weren't really doing giant, huge crossovers like that anymore. Like, they weren't going to top Crisis on Infinite Earths, so like, we're not even going to try. So that's why you kind of have to look at that as sort of the peak of DC TV universe. Then they developed the Superman and Lois show, and they've kind of put that off by itself, even though technically it's meant to be connected to the other DC TV shows. They try to be really careful about not referencing and not having a bunch of crossovers with a ton of other shows. There's like a little bit of referencing the other stuff, but not really, not like they used to have a bunch of crossovers all the time. They did just announce that they're developing a Diggle TV show that's based on the Justice League. It's called Justice U, with a bunch of lesser characters that most of you probably never heard of, and some ones that they're creating brand new for the TV show. Like, we're not allowed to use a bunch of big comic book characters, so we're going to create some new ones for the show. They're just making a pilot for that. They haven't picked it up to series, so the CW could wind up canceling that too. There is that Naomi TV show that the CW has, but they've already confirmed that that's set on a separate Earth. That might get a season 2, but they haven't said anything about it yet. Like, they've gone way past the time where they would normally announce big renewals for next season. So it's not looking good for the DC TV universe as you used to know it on the CW. So one of the main reasons why they're canceling some of this stuff is because it is so long in the tooth, like it's reached its natural end, so it is time for a lot of it to end anyway. But the new owners of Warner Brothers Discovery, this big combined company that they just sold to, are planning this big Disney Plus style redesign for the DC TV on HBO Max.
You see, Batman doesn't kill people.
Because he's a
He's a dark creature of the night.
I just did videos for the Peacemaker HBO series. That was a big spin-off of the Suicide Squad movie. That was the first example of that, so I'll post links in the description. One of the biggest differences of that show is that previously the hallmarks of the classic CW shows were that they had super long episode runs, like 20 plus episodes per season, and relatively low budgets per episode that only involved one movie actor here and there, like very brief crossover with the movies that one time because of Crisis on Infinite Earths with Ezra Miller meeting Grant Gustin's version of The Flash.
The what?
The Flash?
The Flash? The Flash? It's complicated.
It was a great moment, but that was like the zenith of the CW TV shows. And now Warner Brothers has been planning their own version of what Marvel did with the MCU on Disney+. They've been planning it for a couple years now. Like, you probably heard about some of these shows like the Green Lantern show, the Batman shows a couple years ago. It's just taken Warner Brothers and DC this long to actually make those shows. There are currently 2 new Batman HBO shows starring the actors and the characters from Robert Pattinson's new Batman movie with Matt Reeves. There's the Penguin show with Colin Farrell. There's the new Batman Arkham show, which will feature most of the villains that are inside Arkham right now. We got a teaser for that during the Robert Pattinson Batman movie.
Riddle me this.
The scene at the end of the movie with the Joker and the version of the Riddler getting their versions of origin stories was sort of a teaser for the Arkham HBO series. There was even that big deleted scene with Batman versus the Joker inside Arkham. That's something that they would address during an Arkham HBO show. So that's like the biggest of the big you could possibly do. Previously, doing Batman on TV was sort of a no-go. Like, there was this big thing with them not being able to use Batman as a character the way you would want them to use Batman as a character on any of these CW shows. They had to create this weird backstory about why Batman wasn't around, like he disappeared. They eventually did a version of Hush on Batwoman. He was kind of a low-budget version of Hush. The reason that whole rule with no Batman on TV actually started with Christopher Nolan way back when he started doing Batman Begins, like way back in the day. He told Warner Brothers when he started working on the Dark Knight trilogy, he said that he didn't want them introducing some alternate low-budget version of Batman on TV while he was trying to hype up his brand new redesigned, serious version of Batman with Christian Bale. Because remember, this was happening after he was trying to reinvigorate the Batman franchise right after Batman and Robin with the George Clooney nipples version of Batman. So the past 10, 20 years or so, we just had DC TV shows, DC TV characters all over the place, all kinds of different TV networks, different people making the shows, lots of different cooks in the kitchen. So that's how you wind up with so many different versions of the character all over the place at the same time. Then what happened recently is all the studios started rolling out their streaming networks like Disney+, HBO Max. The whole goals for what the Marvel shows, the DC shows were supposed to do for each of them just completely changed. Normally, the whole reason why studios even make television shows is to license them to other TV channels around the world to make a ton of money, and they made a ton of money doing stuff like this. But when all of them own streaming networks, the real goal for them to make money is by having people subscribe to their networks, and you can't do that if you have like a billion different versions of characters coming from a bunch of different places. Like, you really need to have all your content in one specific place. Like, this is the only place where you're gonna see these heroes. That's why a couple years ago when I did this video about them canceling the Marvel Netflix shows because of Disney+, they finally put Kevin Feige in charge of all the creative content that they made in Marvel Studios. People, the movie people, started making all the shows specifically for Disney+. You started to see the movie actors show up on the shows, like I'm in the middle of making Moon Knight episodes right now. Even though he's a brand new character for Marvel, you haven't seen him in the movies yet, he is meant to cross over with the future Marvel Phase 4, Marvel Phase 5 movies.
How did you just do that?
I'm a really good lawyer.
That's why they canceled most of the Marvel TV shows that came before, the old stuff. Like, they canceled Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they canceled the Ghost Rider TV show that they were getting ready to make. So now DC is basically doing the same thing with the CW shows. So basically all the networks now, not just DC, Marvel 2, a bunch of the other streamers, are taking all their content and trying to move it exclusively to their streaming networks just to entice you to subscribe. Part of the reason why they canceled the other DC TV shows instead of also just moving them to HBO Max, because they could theoretically do that, is because, one, it's complicated to do that for the older shows just because of the way they set up the contracts and the people who were making the shows. And for example, when they created the Superman and Lois show, they kind of knew what was going to be happening a couple years down the road, so they planned for that to happen, but just for Superman and Lois. The other really big thing that you probably saw recently is that Warner Brothers is trying to sell the CW just outright. Like, they're trying to get rid of the entire network. And when that happens, the person who buys the network doesn't want a lot of these more expensive shows that aren't bringing in as many brand new viewers as the brand new shows are. This meme will be the thing that survives the entire DC TV universe. But just in general, the future of the DC TV universe as you know it is going to be more like the DCEU TV universe on HBO Max. It's super connected to the DCEU movies. They can use whichever characters they want, and all the actors, like on the Disney Plus shows, will show up in future movie projects eventually, or at least some of the actors will. Like I said, all the Marvel fans went through a version of this just a couple years ago. Same basic thing is happening now, but with all the DC TV stuff. Here we go again. So I will do more DC episode videos, but it's going to be a while before some of that stuff premieres. If you have any questions about what's going on just in general in the DC universe, just post them in the comments below. My non-spoilery Doctor Strange 2 video will post Tuesday morning, and then I'll start doing full post-credit scene videos, Easter eggs, everything for the movie later in the week after it actually comes out. My Moon Knight finale video will also post after they release it as well, so really big week coming up. Everyone click here for my Moon Knight Episode 6 finale trailer video, and click here for my brand new Doctor Strange 2 trailer video with a whole bunch of cameos. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.